on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and joins me now. Thank you very much, Senator, for talking to us. Call me a skeptic, but the U.S. has been burned by Pyongyang for decades and decades. Under no administration have we been able to gain control of this rogue regime. So how are we to trust North Korea as it has invited even South Korean journalists to inspect the dismantling of a nuclear site?
You are right to be skeptical, and you are right that the last three administrations have tried and failed to negotiate something that is in our national security interests. The North Koreans are willing to talk, and yet they're not willing to keep to the commitments that they make. So you're right to be skeptical. On the other hand, I do see some good movement forward, not just the announcement today that they're allowing South Korean journalists to go look at this dismantling, but the release of these three hostages. Of course, I wish that had happened a year and a half ago, because Otto Warmbier from Ohio should have been one of those who was released immediately, and it's unbelievable the treatment that he received, and really shows the evil nature of that regime. So I don't think we should trust them. On the other hand, I think it's good we're having a direct dialogue. I have called for that over time, and I think there are some positive signs recently that this summit in Singapore could be successful.
North Korea never did acknowledge the atrocities committed against Otto Warmbier. They never admitted that they tortured him. It was clear, though, that he had been suffering for a very long time. What then is next? I mean, as far as the country trying to come together with the United States and South Korea by releasing these the remaining three American hostages, what does that say about moving forward between the two nations?
Yeah, the next thing is specific commitments. We need commitments on denuclearization, and that's the stopping of the testing, of course, not just of the weapons, but the means to deliver them. The ICBMs were mentioned earlier, but also just taking their nuclear weapons program and dismantling it, because as long as that regime has nuclear weapons, it continues to be a danger to the region and indeed to the world, given their delivery system. So it has to be specific commitments. In exchange for that, they'll be looking for something, and we'll see what that is. In the past, it's been economic help, as you know, enhancing trade. I think the sanctions have finally started to bite. And I think that the regime believes that the administration is serious about tightening the sanctions further.
You know, the country has conducted 6 nuclear tests at its biggest facility since 2006, and most recently in September of 2017. Some experts believe, and I want your take on this, the reason Kim Jong-un has agreed to stop test firing these missiles is because he has already achieved what the North has set out to do decades ago, and that is to develop a nuclear weapon capable of reaching the United States. Do they have it? And where are they hiding it if they are going to, in fact, allow journalists and potentially inspectors to come and inspect whether they've given up the nuclear program?
No, I think that's a very good point. And I think three things have happened, frankly. One is they have achieved a level in their nuclear weapons program where they believe at a minimum it gives them leverage. Do they have a certain way to access, our borders? Could these missiles actually reach the United States? Probably, but maybe not. But at least they have the ability now, and they have certainly said they have the ability to reach our shores. Second, the sanctions. I mean, these international sanctions that the UN finally was willing to help us on. So it's not just unilateral sanctions, but a much broader international group, including China. The tightening of those sanctions is, I think, probably the single most important reason for the timing. And then finally is the ability of this administration to persuade the regime and others that they're serious, that they have not taken the military option off the table. And when General Mattis and others speak, I think he has credibility. I think that combination has gotten us to this point. But now, Julie, we got to be sure that once again, we aren't making commitments, concessions to them in exchange for commitments that cannot be verified on their part. We have to make it so it's verifiable, unlike the Iran agreement, frankly, and we have to be sure that they are indeed dismantling their program.
Pulling out of the Iran agreement obviously sends a very strong message to North Korea. Let's assume that is heard, and the talks will go smoothly, but we'll wait to see on that. I want to turn now to the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem and ask you how the U.S. now goes about mending the friction that this move has caused with our allies.
Well, first of all, Jerusalem's the capital of Israel, and in every other country, the country gets to choose where the U.S. Embassy is in their capital. So this has been longstanding policy among many of us, including me, and it's not a surprise, certainly to anybody, that we believe Israel ought to have that right. With regard to the tensions, this will only be resolved, which is this ongoing Palestinian-Israeli tension, with a peaceful diplomatic approach. And so rushing the fence and the violence that has been perpetrated is not going to resolve the issue. I believe in the two-state solution. Not everybody does, I understand that, but I think that's where the Palestinians and those on Gaza who Hamas has been, as you know, very active on this last 24 hours in promoting this rush at the fences and really perpetrating a lot of this violence. They have to decide if they're willing to negotiate and recognize Israel as a country and have a two-state solution. I think there's a way forward here, and maybe, just maybe, by all the violence that's occurred in the last 24 hours, it'll get more attention from the international community.
Let's hope. Senator Rob Portman, great to see you. Thanks for speaking with us.
Thanks for having me on. Great to be with you as always.
Thank you.